Welcome to the Quest Culture Podcast. We are here. Well, I'm here with my friends and my family, and I'm really fortunate to be able to get out here and talk about the things that we like to talk about. All things sci-fi. What else? Horror, fantasy,
and everything in between.
Popular
Everything
culture,
Comics.
right? Comics, of
Video
course.
games?
exactly. Video games as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Current events. And,
Exactly, and I think that we've assembled the right team for the very first episode. So thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
Yay.
Podcast assemble.
Happy to be here.
Just hit the mic. That's a good start there. So I know everybody listening out there is thinking what the world really needed right now was one more podcast. So what I'd like to say to all those that are thinking that is you're welcome. And here we go. So
Are you trying to suggest that there's too many podcasts out there?
what would
that?
make you think that?
But there isn't, and now there is a Quest Culture podcast,
Right.
That's right.
That
Right.
podcast, right?
Roy.
Exactly.
which Brendon thinks his question is going to be the first question. He's wrong. My question is going to be the first question.
Oh.
There
That
we go.
is, how did
Nice.
this podcast come about?
Good question.
Okay. Well, Darjak the Destroyer here, LuDana.
Oh.
Wow.
I don't know if you guys want to introduce yourselves, but my nickname for her is Darjak the Destroyer. If she was ever into video games, that would have to be her call sign. I don't know if you like that or not, but that's what I call
I
it.
do, but you can call me whatever you want.
All right, perfect. And then I've got my my cousin here, who is I like to call the Proffesor. And we sit around a lot and we watch movies and we share cartoons and we share just things that we're discovering, because I think we've, for the most part, Shell and I have been lifelong fans of comics and such. And
Yeah.
you are a fan of movies, primarily horror and,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. So we used to sit around and think about, man, it would be nice to hear voices like this out there, because you don't really hear voices like this out there. And we thought, well, why don't we maybe do one? And so here we are.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, if it's going to be about this genre, and we talked about in particular the first episode would be, because we're going to vent a little bit about comic book movies and that sort of thing. I thought to myself, there's only a handful of people who I could even think would be on the first guest for the first episode. And when we found out it was going to be this, I was like, oh, it's got to be Roy. So then I picked up
Honored.
my phone and I was like, this guy is like on CNN right now. Like, he's not going to come on here. And he came on
He's
here.
here.
For you,
He's
I
here.
came.
Here.
I will.
Yay.
So tell us how you guys met, and then
So
I know the story.
yeah. So believe it or not, many years ago, Brendon and I were both trainers at the same gym.
okay,
I look very
Bally's?
different than the way I look now.
Bally's.
he was always in good shape. He was
Last month, I joined the gym for the first time after 4 years.
Okay.
So,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay.
I got like 6 workouts in. I feel good. I feel like a dilapidated jalopy, but it's getting there, But back then, we were in shape.
Okay.
And, you think of fitness trainers, these kind of jockey guys with no necks. And we just like showed up in comic book t-shirts all the time.
Okay,
And at some point, we realized we're both scratching the head in a similar way. And we started talking and we became friends.
that's great.
And yeah.
That's
Tell
great.
them what you were drinking when you walked in.
Nobody needs to know this. I'm proud of this.
What were you drinking, Roy?
Sorry, Roy.
I was in the mood.
set up.
So I picked up a Diet Mountain Dew.
I do drink Diet Mountain Dew.
You know
Brendan
what?
almost
Every
just
once in a
choked.
while.
It's like,
Every once in a
Who drinks Mountain
while.
Dew?
No.
Much less Diet Mountain
I'm
Dew.
a Diet
On
Coke
the East
guy,
Coast.
but every once in a while I might drink a Diet Mountain
Yeah.
Dew. It's just
Yeah.
all bad.
It's
for
bad.
you. It's just toxic. You
It's
know
battery
it is.
acid.
You know it is, right? You're like, oh, but I won't get
Sorry,
the calories.
Yeah, my people glow in the dark later. It's
I mean,
just very
yeah.
bad.
Well,
But
everything- but why diet?
for the calories, man.
Oh,
I'll ruin my
gotcha.
health, but not my waistline.
Got it.
Yes,
Got it.
yes.
All
Yeah.
right. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
we used to be working at the same gym together. But Roy skipped the part where he designs his own costumes for Halloween and for cosplay.
Oh wow.
So
It's like an
you
ambush.
do
I did not
cosplay.
know it's going to get this
Oh, wow.
personal.
So,
yeah.
listen,
You do cosplay, okay?
listen, and I'm not talking about
That's cool.
Like any
half-assed looking
Mhm.
stuff. Like this guy,
like
makes
aluminum
stuff
foil.
where I was like, I want to try to do that. And I used to go up to him all the time and ask him, Roy, how do you make that mask? Like, if I want to make the mask for like Black Panther, how would I do that? And I would.
I remember that.
Bro,
And so you did it. you made a mask for Black
I
Panther.
don't know. You know how hard it is?
Okay, I mean,
No, that's what maybe had even more respect for what he was doing
So-
because there's no way. I just looked. He told me like to go get the Batman mask and you
that's
know
actually very smart.
frame, get the ears, you know, maybe shave them down a little bit,
That's
and
smart.
then adding little pieces. And I just looked up all of what it would take to do that, and I said, "This is why this
You're going to-
mad.
You're
I'm
going to
not doing
Target.
it.
You're
I'm
going to
not
Party
gonna
City.
pay him.
Forget it.
Yeah,
Order from
It's
Amazon.
funny on the way here. So we're recording on Canal Street, the studios on Canal Street, and I was walking by Canal Rubber. And for those of us who do these kind of things or did, Canal Rubber was a really good source. They had all kinds of rubbers and AV foams that you
Mhm.
would use for cosplay. They shuttered.
Oh wow.
They don't exist, and you could really browse. You can't do that on Amazon.
Yeah.
So I just noticed that today.
Well, I would imagine you
That's-
also probably use Pearl too, right? Which is no longer with
Pearl
us.
and Canal Plastics.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but now I have kids and now I do it for them. The thing is
Right.
with kids, they're very excited. They want you to do all kinds of crazy stuff. My son wanted to be Iron Spider. You remember that? The Spider-Man with the metal
Mhm,
arms last
mhm.
Halloween? 2 Halloweens ago.
Wow. You
They
got
don't
him
sell
in
it.
early.
So I
didn't
said,
you, with the
okay,
comic?
right. So I created a harness with movable arms,
Kidding.
the whole thing. It took me about 100 hours of work.
Wow.
And he wore it for 10 minutes, super excited, then didn't want to wear it again. So,
Wow.
Then what?
didn't want to wear it again.
What?
He was super excited. He's a kid,
But he
wore
wore it for
Okay, but he
Halloween,
did
though.
wear it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
That's
We
impressive.
ran around. He like played with the arms and everything,
That is
and the arms
cool.
moved. It was, it wasn't
That's
like a.
impressive. That's
Yeah.
impressive. So tell
what
us,
was your
right?
favorite
That's what I was going to ask.
costume that you did?
Okay, well, so a few years ago, this again, I was young and single and all that kind of stuff. I made a Captain America costume. I worked on it for 2 years.
Wow.
The goal was it needed to look like I stole it from the set of the movie. It could not look in the slightest homemade,
Right.
and I
Wow.
achieved it.
Wow.
I achieved it.
And you achieved
I
it.
achieved it.
You
And
know,
it
I'd
was
love to
2
see
years
a
of
photo
work.
of that.
We
I would.
need to see a photo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. I'll show
I'm
you.
sure there's one on his phone.
Yeah, my phone is not on me,
Okay.
but I didn't want the vibration to be picked up by the mic.
Always.
If Brendon asks nicely, I may give him the photo to splice in with the video. We'll see how,
Yes.
how
Be
seriously
great.
production
That
value
would
I will
is.
be pleading.
Now,
You can find it on my Instagram if you really
Okay,
want to.
okay.
But yeah, I was very proud of it, and that was the pinnacle. And now I just do stuff for the kids.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
Well, Brendan had you had a Captain America shield.
I did.
You
I
still
got-
have it?
Of course, I've got
Okay.
it.
Yes.
It's in the closet,
Yes.
but it's not. I need to get one of those. There was a guy walking down the street near Rockefeller Center 2 weeks ago, and there was there's thousands of people walking by, but this guy he was walking around in regular clothes with a Captain America shield.
As one does.
I was like, that is so cool. Like he's like, I give 2 shits. I don't care.
Yeah.
His
Like
mommy
midday.
raised him right. Yeah.
Yeah.
People were like, what the hell? And he was just walking proudly. But I think it was also it doubled as a backpack, right?
Oh,
I
see.
have that backpack.
Okay. I see.
I need that backpack.
That's a
You need
store-bought
that backpack.
item. Yeah, you can
Okay.
find it probably on eBay at this point. But yeah,
Okay. All right.
All right,
Yeah.
I got
That's
it.
pretty cool.
Birthday
It's a little bit
gifts
small,
coming
but
up.
it's still very cool.
It's just to put it on, just walk
Yeah.
around in the middle of the day. I'm gonna
Yeah.
do that.
I bet you are.
You remember that cartoon when Captain America throws his mighty shield? Oh, those who oppose his shield must yield. When he's led to a fight and the duel is due, then red, then white, and blue come through.
But Captain America, this is my T-shirt.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
From
That was the Jack Kirby based cartoon.
I know you
Yeah.
guys are friends for sure. You guys are friends.
I used to love that cartoon. That is a cartoon that got me into really, I think, superheroes in general. Captain America used to be my favorite superhero.
Who's your favorite superhero?
He is mine.
He's your favorite
He's
superhero.
my god. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a good segue because I want to ask you first. Tell us why he's your favorite superhero,
And why not
and
Superman?
and then we'll talk about the new Captain America movie
Yeah,
that's
Mhm.
coming out with Anthony Mackie.
Anthony Mackie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to that one.
Okay.
I actually like Anthony Mackie in that role, both as the Falcon and now as the new Captain America, more than I like the comic book character.
Okay.
Because he brings charm and humor that the comic book character, for some reason, never had.
Okay.
And still
Never.
doesn't.
Well, he was always written kind of flat,
Stiff.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, the comic book
Which
character
is
bothers
weird.
me, and I'm going to go on a random rant. In that,
Mhm.
okay, Steve Rogers in the comic he shares the mantle. In the movies he bequeaths it. Fine,
Mhm.
but all of a sudden, just because he's called Captain America, he's leading the Avengers. He's doing their strategy. Everybody's listening. But why? You know,
Mhm.
Steve Rogers earned it. This guy has his own thing.
I see.
You know,
Is it so?
Yeah, I don't like that either.
yeah,
I don't
right.
like that either. Sam, I mean, his new Sam is a soldier, right? Because he's
in the movies, yeah,
in the
not in
movies,
the comic.
because it's more of the ultimate Sam.
Right.
So
When you win World War II, then I'll listen to you.
no, I
Right.
agree.
But,
No,
you
I
know,
agree.
Well, I mean, it's even with the origin story of Sam, right? Like he was
It's
like an
changed over time.
infiltrator, like kind of
In the comics?
plant by Red Skull.
Well, the
wasn't it?
Cosmic Cube,
Yes,
Right.
yes.
and then he became a social worker and a teacher and all.
Yeah,
these kind of
yeah.
things. But he
So
started.
he's never had like
That's
a
like
real
in the 70s,
military
there was like a
background.
black exploitation pimp thing going on.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
And then in
yes.
the island, the whole
Yes.
thing. Yeah.
yes, he was what, Slap Wilson.
Yes. And then
Slap-
when
Yes.
he got through the angry guy phase, then they kind of grew him out.
Yeah.
But he never. There was never charm or humor the way Anthony
So
Mackie
this
brings
was
to
in
the
the
role.
comics.
Yeah.
This was in the
Wow.
comics, right? So
Yeah.
it sort of deviates in the
Right.
film, right? It's more respectable.
Yeah.
I get your point completely.
He's just more
Makes
fun to
sense.
watch, Anthony
Yeah.
Mackie. My wife has a bit of a crush on him. It's okay, Kim. But you know, he's like charming and he's fun. I like him more. Yeah.
What do you think about the film, though? Like, I'm sure you've seen like the trailers for it. There's a lot of buzz around it as it's taking it to the next phase and the new Avengers and so forth. What are your thoughts about the film itself? From what you've seen?
I mean, you know, it's a Captain America / Hulk 2 film. I don't know if you know they're bringing
Yes.
like Betsy
Leader.
Ross and the Hulk
Yeah.
and I'm going to have a controversial opinion, and that is
Okay.
Edward Norton was a much better Bruce Banner than
We can talk about Ed.
yeah,
Norton.
we
can talk
Brendan and
about-
I are fist bumping here.
Yeah.
He was just more the Bruce Banner that I know from the comics, you know, who's not a very nice guy, like a bundle of
Oh,
neuroses.
moody.
Yeah, explosive. You understand how he explodes into the Hulk, you know, when things go
Right.
sideways.
Mhm.
Which I think is
Ruffalo
fascinating
is. I mean, his name sounds like a type of a puppy, right? You know, like it just
I
no,
have a
he never did it
Ruffalo.
for me. Never did it for me.
I don't.
Yeah.
I like Mark Ruffalo a lot.
Yeah,
I just don't. I agree with Roy that I don't think he is.
it's a different direction. for
You
sure.
know what it is? His Bruce Banner is too nice.
Yeah, he's
The
like a
actual-
rom-com
It is.
Bruce
the actual-
Banner, right?
Yes,
It is.
Yeah, the actual Bruce Banner in the comics is like, as Roy was saying, is not a very nice guy. He's actually, you know, once they flesh it out further and deeper into the comics, because the Hulk is perceived as the monster always, right?
Mhm.
Which is the tragic thing about him. It's actually revealed that Bruce is the monster.
But it's the duality, right?
Right.
When they have that Jekyll and Hyde, right?
Right.
Both characters
That-
have some qualities of
But
being
Bruce
not
has
a
a more
great person. right?
malevolent
But
personality.
that makes it interesting.
Yeah,
Right,
It does.
otherwise-
Complex, right?
Right.
And Mark Ruffalo, I love him, but you're right. I think he is very nice, right? And I never thought about that before. But when you think about the '70s Incredible Hulk
Bill
television
Bixby.
show,
Bruce-
it was so dark. Like,
Yeah.
and I love
Right.
superhero
It
stuff, but it
was.
was like every episode he was
and he was dark.
maudlin. It was like it was
You
always
were
a bad
on edge.
situation.
You were on edge because you never knew when it was going to flip.
That's
And
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
But so would you guys say that in general, because I'm not a comic book reader, that all, as far as Marvel, that they've all deviated from the personalities of the characters in the comic books? Like, was
That's a good
everybody
question.
dark like that?
That's a good question.
Because in Marvel movies,
Yeah.
to me, I think they really used to rely on
Like,
comedy almost.
well, yeah.
I mean, you know, the banter back and forth that they would have with each other, especially Stark.
I
Tony
think that
Stark.
was the distinction
I was-
between Marvel and DC, right? Like when they were making the films,
Yeah,
that
and-
DC movies were far too dark
We're very dark.
and Marvel
So
movies were
just trying to
lighthearted.
make it more comfortable for kids, or
Well, I think also MCU movies, the Marvel movies, because they're Marvel movies before then, right? So it's sort of almost like an historical
Right.
epoch. So the MCU movies are less, they're more playful. They're less afraid
Yeah.
to change things, take risks. DC movies, particularly the DCEU, the now defunct DCEU, was not that it was self-important, but they were very aware of their iconicity and they did not
Mhm.
want to compromise that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with that comes a certain level of preserving what's there. And I think that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I feel like, well, first of all, you didn't tell us why Captain America is your favorite character
Mm.
and not Superman.
By the way, I'm loving this conversation.
And-
I am loving this
And
conversation.
to your point about these characters getting darker in the Marvel universe, I think Marvel right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe they're borrowing heavily from the Ultimate Universe, which
Mhm,
is a
mhm.
much darker incarnation of the characters, which actually I am actually more partial to than 616, even though 616 has brought in some of those elements.
Explain
No, just a year. You
616.
should
are
explain
losing me.
616 because
Explain.
616 is the
Yes.
legacy.
I saw
You
her
guys are
glaze
using
over.
code,
Right.
like,
Yeah.
That's a legacy.
You're using
Yes.
codes, and I don't
Universe,
understand.
right?
Is that an
So-
area
yes.
code? What's
Yes.
going on?
So 616 is what's commonly referred to. Oh, so I guess that would be the comic books are 616. So anything that happens in the comic books in general is
In the
616.
mainstream continuity,
Thank you,
the
Roy.
Right.
established canon
Right.
takes place in the dimension labeled 616, first appearing in Alan Moore's run on Captain Britain.
Right.
So there are infinite
Even saying
universes,
legacy
and the
is kinda
mainstream
confusing.
canon.
Yeah.
Right.
But do you get it? So essentially,
She's trying really hard not to burst out laughing. You can, it's okay.
it's
It is
all right.
ridiculous. It's
all
part of the
right. It's all right.
fun. It's okay.
So listen, I think there's a balance here because you guys are diehard comic book fans. I stopped reading comic books when I went to college, right? But I always follow storylines. I definitely watch the movies and stuff. And so for me, this is like a whole new world. It's like a Brave New World kind
I'm
of situation.
loving it. Yeah.
There, these multiverses just really add another dimension. And so to your question about like personalities, the way I know their personalities is from the 616, right? From the legacy characters. And so when you find out, like for example, Scarlet Witch married her brother, and you know what I mean, like Spider-Man, in another dimension, Spider-Man becomes evil, or like these are all things that it gives them possibilities that they didn't have before, which I do appreciate it, right? And you can still have like the legacy, storyline.
Yeah.
Okay.
It can get expensive
you can
to
eat-
follow. That's
cake.
probably why I stopped
It is
reading,
expensive.
right? But
Well, you can eat your cake and have it too, right? That's
Yes.
the whole fun of
That's
it.
the whole
That's
point
right.
of having it.
But even the Marvel, the mainstream canon, the 616, has evolved. Captain America is a good example. There was a longtime writer in Captain America, Mark Grunwald. He was great. But as much as he contributed to the mythology, he also made Captain America something I thought he wasn't.
which
And
is,
that even gave short thrift to what his creators, Joe Simon and Jack Kirby, made him, which Captain America is a soldier. Captain America kicks butt.
yeah,
One of the reasons, the superficial reason why Cap is my favorite is if you have Superman on one end of the spectrum, bright, optimistic, represents greater values than himself. He's, like a walking billboard in a way. Then you have Batman, this dark, obsessive, but human, very human character. And every superhero in between, you could argue, is on the spectrum in between them. Cap is right in the middle. He's bright. He stands for something. He means something. He's not some like petulant teenager or whatever, but he will kick ass, right?
Captain America.
Because he's a soldier. He fought in World War II. He liberated camps. He fought, So Mark Grunwald took that away, and he made his Cap very kind of happy-go-lucky. There was a comic where he had to shoot a terrorist before he killed children, and he was torn over it. Cap will not be torn over.
would not be
Cap
torn over.
killed a lot of Nazis. So I think he gave short thrift. And the original Captain America by Joe Simon and Jack Kirby was absolutely not, a soft guy. He was very
soldier.
intense.
yeah.
And I think, at least from my understanding, it was that Ultimate Universe that brought that Cap back, I think, more so than it existed before. Because that Cap was actively in the books, killing people. Right? And it was one of the first times where I read a Cap book, and it actually brought me back onto Cap was when he became more realistic. There was a run, I'm not sure which one it is. I'm sure you know which
Mark
one it is.
Millar and Brian Hitch.
Yeah, is that the one? Yeah, I think it is. Yes.
Guys,
These two.
I know.
Crazy. That's crazy. It's crazy. But there's a run also where Cap becomes disillusioned, right? A little bit about his mission.
Is this in the Ultimates or mainstream?
This was actually 6-1 mainstream. This was actually mainstream. But it's almost as if it happened in parallel with the Ultimate incarnation.
Oh, so you're talking about the Ed Brubaker, Steve Epting run.
Yes.
Yes, that's when he ends up getting assassinated. He gets better because it's comics, but that's the one where
Yes.
it ends with him getting assassinated.
Yes.
because American Heroes, that's what happens to
That's
them,
what
right?
happens to
They get-
American Heroes.
Yeah.
Once they start to
Becoming
question,
disillusioned. Yes.
yeah,
Right.
they get taken out.
They think about
Oh.
Captain America, he's a grown-up. Listen, if anybody loves Wolverine, I'm not going to judge. It's all good. Wolverine's, but Wolverine to me is like a teenager.
Yeah.
Dude's 150
agree.
years old. Grow up.
I agree.
Everything is angry. And
I
he's always
agree.
mopey.
Right.
And he has a crush on the redhead.
Brooding. Yeah.
Cap is a grown-up, right? He thinks before he does. He's very measured. The Ultimates Cap started out as a bit of this jingoistic fascist a little bit, you know? There's that famous moment where he kicks butt and he points to the A on his forehead. He's saying, does this stand for France? Which is, it's supposed to be over the top, right?
Yeah, he was over the top.
Yeah.
But I like that the Marvel Cap is a soldier. I think I feel like the MCU, well, this is a whole other thing, but I feel like the MCU misses him. I feel like that character with that kind of purpose, the grown up in a room, is sadly missing. I think right now in the current incarnation, Phase 4.
Yeah, Phase 5 now.
Phase 5.
You know, Chris Evans knocked that out of the park.
I have a question.
I was shocked.
He did, yeah.
Shocked. I did not when that casting happened. I like Chris Evans, but I was like, why Chris Evans of all people? Chris Evans was the Human Torch.
Can I
Chris
ask
Evans
you guys
is
a
not.
question? And this is really around where we are in terms of our culture or whatever. Do you think the writers changed Captain America as a result of sort of like a criticism about like this kind of soldier or this kind of white man who authority figure or whatever? Was it a critique in some ways what they were writing on that that framework on masculinity or Captain America? What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. And there's that whole post 9/11 thing of
absolutely
our uneasy relationship with our power as a superpower in the world and with the use of military force. You know, we still glamorize it, but we hate it as well.
Right.
We kind of have that kind of double, you know. And if you think of the first Captain America movie, it's so wholesome. It's as if it was made in 1943.
It is.
Right? By Capra. You know, it almost feels that way. And I think that was part of it. And if you think about it, it's 2011, right? There's no reason to suspect there would be a good movie or that it would do well, and certainly not in international markets. And they really cracked that formula. They really figured out. They said, we're going to make him not an embodiment of the American reality, but of the American promise, the American dream.
And it's
He's just going to be a really good guy. And there was a whole theme of, when Dr. Erskine, who's also very symbolically, he's an escaped Jewish scientist from Nazi Germany, very symbolic. And he says, the world doesn't need another strong man. He needs somebody with a good heart. You be a good man. And it's all about, why did you choose this guy and not the other guy, the bully? It's because the world, he knows what it is to be weak, and therefore he's not going to abuse his power. Right, yes. And I think that's very much metaphorical for where America was then and is now.
I think that's a really good segue to talk about your book.
My book?
Yeah.
Well, if Captain America is your favorite character, what led you to? I mean, I know you talked about making your own comics as a kid in your classroom, and that you.
He read the intro.
I read more than that, brother.
So,
but and I have to say that, and I missed it because it started off so well, but it's really swell having you here, brother.
Swell, Brendon, not a lot of people feel comfortable saying that word.
He said swell. You said it for real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, nobody's picking up on what I'm laying down here. No, let me repeat this. Brendon, not a lot of people feel comfortable saying that word.
I feel quite comfortable saying swell. Because,
that was a quote from the Superman movie.
That's right. Christopher Reeve.
Yeah.
So I cracked up reading that because I that's one of the things that I remember quite vividly from that movie is that Lois mocked him for saying swell.
Yeah.
It just came back to me. I remember that too.
Yeah.
I just want to say, as a sociologist, right, and as a lover of pop culture, I really love the voice that you sort of captured in the book. Right, it's very academic and it's very pop culture, and it's a good marriage of both.
Oh, thank you.
Like in my dream world, that is the kind of work that I would love to produce, right? You're able, the way I was trained as a sociologist, you never get a chance to really talk about pop culture, and you sort of showed me that you can, right? Very much so. So I really enjoyed what I've read. I haven't finished it yet, but I loved it, and I I just
Wow.
wanted to let you know.
Thank
that.
you.
Looking forward to it.
It really feels like you're having fun,
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
and it comes right through.
yeah.
And it makes it really easy to read.
Cool.
So
So congratulations.
tell us about the book.
So I'll start with some shameless self-promotion.
Okay.
I'll ask Brent to hold the cover for the camera for those of you watching, because there's a version of this that's available, I'm assuming, on YouTube and
Get the book.
etc.
Go get this book.
Get the book. It's good.
Yeah.
All those
The
listening, go get the book.
okay. So the title of the book is Superman Circumcised? The Complete Jewish History of the World's Greatest
Explain
Hero.
that title.
What?
Explain that title.
So the book is not literally about Superman's circumcision.
Right.
It has
Right.
106 images in it. Not one of them is of a penis. I am
Aw,
very
man.
proud. I know.
So here's the thing. There's loincloths, though.
We can imagine.
I'm gonna read it.
So like people, right? They're not very smart sometimes. And I actually had anti-circumcision activists come after me when the book came out.
Stop
I
it.
swear to
Of
God.
course
Are
you
you
And I had-
kidding?
not kidding.
No,
and I
of
had
course
to
you
explain to them, honey, boo boo, it's not what it's about. It's a joke. It's a tongue-in-cheek title. It's a joke. Do you think To Kill a Mockingbird is about animal abuse? People are just not very, sometimes. Anyway, I'm sure everybody listening to this is brilliant
They're
because
brilliant.
they're
Oh,
listening.
we only have
Our
we only have
audience
brilliant
will be
listeners.
brilliant, yes.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, exactly right. If you're listening to this, your IQ just jumped 20 points, just so you know. But I'm very proud to say that. So there's a magazine in England called The Book Sale, which is like their Publishers Weekly, and they have literary awards, and they have a very real but humorous literary award called the oddest book title in the world. And my book won for 2021,
That's awesome.
and
That's
I could not be any prouder if I won a Pulitzer.
Yeah, let's
That's very cool. Very cool.
So officially.
Did they send you a plaque or something, or
No, it's a bottle of wine. You get a bottle of wine,
Oh, that's
and you
fine.
get like a digital
Nice.
thing,
That's
which
fine.
has a fox in it for some reason. But that's it.
that's all right.
very cool.
But also, what happened is when that award was announced, just so happens nothing happened in the world that day. Nothing. Everybody in the Middle East was chill. Everybody in China was chill. Everyone in America was chill. Trump wasn't tweeting. Everything was
What
chill.
day was this?
Right.
I don't know, man. But because of that, it ended up on the front page of the British Guardian, which is their biggest newspaper.
Wow.
And
That's
that book
impressive.
blew up.
The planets aligned
So,
for you. That is awesome.
We got to get that
Yeah.
book too.
Yeah, I went to Barnes
Yeah.
and Noble to try to get it. They did not have it. It was
Yeah.
out.
That is awesome.
The book is available everywhere books are sold, but it came out in 2021. So at this point, you may have to order it. It may not have it
Mhm.
on shelf, but you can get it to Target, Barnes and Noble,
Yeah.
Amazon. Obviously, Amazon, I believe, is the cheapest, or your local library.
Yeah.
No author will have an issue if
I got
instead
it
of
from the
buying the book,
library.
you get it from the library.
Yeah.
We just want people to read the work. That's
Yeah.
Of
how it
course.
works.
Yeah.
So it's available. So what was the question? We went on a tangent.
Why the book?
Why the book? Okay,
Why
so,
the title first? But then, yeah.
So I wanted a title that conveyed what the book is about, but conveyed also that the book is not too serious, too heavy, tongue-in-cheek, and I'm having fun with it. So Is Superman Circumcised seemed like a nice clickbaity, fun, humorous title. Yeah.
Smart.
Yeah. So here's the gist of it, and I don't know, many people don't know. The comic book industry, the comic book medium, the magazine medium of comics, the superhero genre, which is the proprietary genre of the comic book medium, are all Jewish American creations.
Yes.
People know where jazz comes from. People know where baseball comes from. People do not know where superheroes and comic books come from. They were virtually one and all created in New York by Jewish immigrants, refugees, and their children in the 1930s and 40s who were here. They could not get a job doing anything else. There was the Depression. Anti-Semitism was even higher than it is now, believe it. Nobody would accept them. They created this industry out of whole cloth. They started at the bottom rung where the pulp magazines, all these kind of sorted, 10-cent penny, and they created comics, and they put into comics their fears and their faith and their fantasies, and they created superheroes. And when you start looking at those superheroes as metaphors and as reflections of that time in that place in that group of people, you start seeing all these patterns. And once you see them, you can't unsee them. And I originally wrote a version of this as my grad school thesis because somebody should really write about this. How come nobody has written about
Yeah.
this? So I just did.
It's amazing.
And that became a book.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Well, like I said, I think it's really great, and for many of us, I think we lean on comic books. I did, right? Superman was my favorite character when I was a kid.
Okay.
I remember having a Superman action figure when I was like 6 years old, right? But we lean on these characters because there's something about, you know, the character itself that you want to sort of make a
Emulate.
part of your own attributes, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so, very much so, like the folks who wrote the comics, they put or they poured in these characteristics into their characters. Can you tell us a little bit about that with like Joel Siegel and Superman?
Jerry Siegel,
Jerry, I'm
Joe
sorry.
Shuster and Jerry Siegel.
Yes.
Where are they from?
So and they're from Cleveland, Ohio.
Yay!
Oh,
Cleveland!
You pick that up? Yeah.
Go Cavs!
Yes.
They are from a neighborhood called Glenville.
Glenville, yes, I know it well.
So Joe Shuster is actually originally from Toronto. And here's a fun fact. Metropolis originally was not based on New York City. It was based on Toronto,
I didn't know that.
where a very
I see
young
that.
Depression-era Joe Shuster worked as a paperboy for a newspaper called the Toronto Daily Star, which
Wow.
became the Daily
Daily
Planet.
Right, yeah.
So there's a lot of these kind of, little parallels. So you had these two Jewish teenagers. They were both bespectacled. One was skinny, one was chubby. You know, and there's always one guy shaped like a banana, one guy shaped like an orange. There's always that kind of
Yeah.
pair.
Laurel and Hart.
Right, yeah, exactly,
Mhm.
exactly. You know, George and Jerry, that kind of, they were nebbishy. They loved science fiction when the word science fiction was still new. Nobody knew what it was.
Mhm,
People would make fun of scientists who predicted we'll reach the moon.
mhm.
That's where we're at in history when this came out. And they were kind of social pariahs. They were, by today's terms, geeky, nerdy. The word didn't exist. But they also suffered a lot of anti-Semitism. Both families escaped they weren't recognized as refugees based on visa, but they all escaped all these pogroms and massacres and all this kind of. Joe Shuster family particularly went through horrific things. I have a piece on CNN coming out soon about it, it's fascinating. And his whole family history is particularly fascinating. And they met in Glenville. And they started doing science fiction together. Then they had a fanzine that they wrote and illustrated together. Joe Shuster was the illustrator, Jerry Siegel was the writer. And they would mimeograph it. That's the precursor to Xerox, using the school mimeograph
You should
machine.
explain what that is. For
You slap ink, it's like Gutenberg,
Yes.
and they would sell through the mail 15 cents a piece. And it actually, it was a fanzine. It accepted stories sent to them by fans. It features the first published stories by Ray Bradbury.
Holy
and,
smokes.
Wow.
Yeah, and Forrest Ackerman. And it didn't last long, but in the third issue, dated October 1934, they wrote a kind of anti-Nietzschean morality tale called Reign of the Superman.
Mm-hmm.
And in it, the Superman is a villain. But there are a lot of other characteristics that we would recognize. The villain was bald. He was a mad scientist. There was a meteorite from space that had special properties, and all these kind of things. And, that was the end of that. And a few months later, with the rise of Nazism and the rise of anti-Semitism here, there was also a huge rise of the KKK during the 40s. There's like a big tidal wave, things echoed. We tend as a community to, as a culture, as the American culture, to sort of remember much more favorably what things were, but they were not good.
Right.
For example, in 1939, the American Nazi Party, the Bund, had a parade down Fifth Avenue in New York, 22,000 people. They
Yep.
filled up Madison Square
Madison
Garden.
They had a
Garden.
thing in Madison Square
Yep.
Garden.
Right.
Yeah.
They had an armed militia training camp in Yaphank
Wow.
on Long Island. So with that all bubbling, Siegel and Shuster sort of figured that the world has had enough villains. And they wanted to turn their hero, inspired by a lot of things. And they go into all their different inspirations in the book and what they bought from everybody. And it's really interesting to see how that kind of took shape. But there's a lot of DNA in Superman, right?
Yeah.
But they created a hero. And here's my favorite part of the origin story. They could not sell this comic strip to anyone. Nobody wanted it. They pitched him over 4 years, between 1934 and 1938, to every single newspaper syndicate in the United States, and they all rejected it. And Siegel kept all the rejection letters, and they're at the Columbia University Special Libraries collection, and I went and I copied all of them. I have all of them,
Wow.
And it's amazing to read them. This idea doesn't have lasting power. It's too childish. My favorite, it's too fantastic. Kids will never relate to this.
I saw this documentary on Max, and I can't remember the name of it. I wish I should have but it basically tells this story.
The DC story, right?
Yeah,
Right.
It's an
Hmm.
incredible story. Tell us how the writers eventually got to Action Comics.
So that's its own really interesting chapter. But the very short version is in 1934, one more thing happened. The comic book medium was created. It's an unemployed school teacher from the Bronx named MC Gaines who came up with the idea. It sold like gangbusters, created a small industry. At first, they were just reprinting old comic strips. They were licensing old comic strips. That ran out very quickly. They started commissioning new content, experimenting with new genres. And they come up with a new series, Action Comics. It's all going to be action. And there wasn't any character-based series. There's all anthologies, short stories, 10 pages, 8 pages, 13 pages. They had Action Comics. They had the printer's book. They had the deadline. It was supposed to come out. They were 13 pages short on the story. Okay? See where this is going.
Yes.
They go back to the slush pile, which in publishing is everything you rejected, and they go through it. Okay, what can we throw in? What's already in print-ready condition? They found this cockamamie, silly thing about some spaceman in tights.
Superman was a throw-in.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, they rejected it. And it
There's
was
no
they
bad
thought it was a
idea,
silly idea.
right?
Listen, think about it. It's 1938. Heroes for kids. Tarzan was the craziest thing. It was like a white guy in a loincloth in Africa. That's right? And you had like federal men and soldiers of fortune and swashbucklers, and that's it. So, and this is a spaceman who's impervious to bullets. He wears tights. He flies through the air. It's just a completely insane idea. And they just threw it in, and the rest is history.
It all
amazing.
kind of ties in
Wow.
with science too, though, right? Like there was an effort in the United States, and we started becoming more mindful of science and really trying to get Americans to be mindful of science. So that I would imagine that really played a role in this as well.
Very much. So long before Superman was known as the Man of Steel, he was champion of the oppressed, which is really interesting. Again, 1930s, created by two Jewish teenagers at an era in
Right
America.
after
I know.
the Depression.
And he was the man of tomorrow because that's when futurism is a movement. Capital F futurism started. That's how you get the World's Fair in the world of tomorrow, right? And all that kind of stuff. Post World War One, it's the Great War, the war to end all wars, right? And everybody predicted this really bright future where humanity will evolve. It's a 20th century. We're all going to evolve socially and scientifically and all this kind of stuff. And we'll have, flying cars in 20 years and we'll conquer all disease. People really thought the golden age is upon us. And Superman was a representative of that. And actually in a very early draft, he didn't come from Krypton. He came from the future.
Man of
He was a
Tomorrow.
time traveler.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with this change, though, did the creators change him to the Man of Steel, or were they advised to do that?
That's a
Where-
very sordid...
Where'd that name come from?
What? So that came later on because of World War II. So in his first appearance in Action Comics #1, it says, nothing short of a bursting shell could penetrate his skin. 2 years later, bursting shells, Nazi shells, are bursting on his skin harmlessly. So he became a Man of Steel because it's a war of steel. World War II was a war of steel and chemicals.
Yes.
So he became the Man of Steel.
Okay. How long did they continue, the original guys from Glenville? How long did they continue to write? Or
So here's an interesting thing. Joe Shuster was turning blind. He had severe myopia, and he got rejected 4F, unfit for duty, which is interesting because a month before he got rejected because of his myopia, 4F, they had a silly story in the Superman comic strip that explained why Superman was not entering the war, in which Clark Kent went to the draft office and was so excited that he accidentally read through the wall the eye chart in the next room and then got classified 4F for myopia, unfit for duty. But that came a month before Joe Shuster, which I think is amazing.
Wow.
Incredible.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
Yeah. And Jerry Siegel got drafted, and he was writing for the Mid-Pacifican and Stars and Stripes, and he was a reporter. He was like a chubby little guy. What are they going to do with him? He's not a commando. It's not Jack Kirby who liberated a camp and got a Bronze Star and killed Nazis. That's a whole different thing. So Joe Shuster kept drawing. They had a studio by this point. They had a bunch of like ghost artists under them,
Right.
and Jerry Siegel sent in scripts as much as he could. I don't know if we're going to go into it, but when they came back from the war, they decided that they didn't like the fact that they were being paid well, but DC was making millions and millions off their backs.
So it was
They
even
sued
like
for the
that back
rights.
then.
They got
Yeah, I
fired.
actually was going to ask you because they
Wow.
didn't own the rights for quite a while.
They didn't own
So when
that.
they sold that first story, With
Oh
it,
my
they sold the
gosh.
rights in perpetuity
Mhm.
for $130.
They didn't know.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
But
And I really go into the details in the book trying to figure out why and how come they didn't know. And I think I found a good balance of
Oh my
what was going
gosh.
through their minds. And it started what ended up becoming probably the longest IP litigation in world history. Started in 1947,
Wow.
resolved by settlement in 2016 with
Wow.
their heirs.
And so they did
Okay.
win the rights finally, or some of the rights.
A portion of the
The
rights
family
and
did,
some, and yeah. I mean, the
Wow.
families are making good money. Whether it's full justice or not is
Mhm.
debatable, but the family's taken care of.
Yeah.
so quick question, just to segue. What's your favorite Superman movie?
Two is my favorite.
2 with Christopher Reeves?
Superman 2, yeah, with Christopher Reeves.
What about you?
Really?
Reeve.
What about
George Reeves, Christopher Reeves.
Right.
No
Thank you.
relation.
Thank you.
Very important stuff here.
What
Yeah.
is my favorite Superman movie?
I don't know. I'm asking you.
Superman, 1978. The
I was
The
like, I
original.
think so
So
too.
the first one. So the
The
first one and the
first
second
one.
one. For
I
me,
like-
it's the second one.
I love
too.
the second
But
one.
I do love the first one. I do love the first one.
I
too.
love the first one, but I love the second
My
one.
favorite scene is
It's a bit
is
sad that we're saying that we love the ones from.
well. That's why I'm asking. That's why I asked this question.
Oh yeah,
Because-
the latest ones
so-
aren't even in the.
That's
they're
why.
not even on the ballot.
So-
That's why I asked. So my
Right.
question to you would be now, why? Why do people hold on to? I don't know if it's people of a certain age. I'm not sure, but why do people hold on to those?
It's
first-
not of a certain age.
I didn't think so, but I just wanted to
I have
qualify.
a
Not of a
video.
certain age.
I have a video of my children when they watched the first Superman for the first time. Only a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah.
I secretly, surreptitiously filmed them. And that scene when Lois Lane falls from the helicopter and he grabs her,
Mhm.
right? He says, "Easy, miss, I've got you. You've
Got
got
me.
me. Who's got you?"
Yeah,
Great line.
Great line.
And then the helicopter falls, and then he grabs it, and the crowd cheers, and the music
Yeah.
swells. The John Wayne,
It's my favorite scene.
And I have a video of my kids, and they're just sitting there, and their eyes
Mesmerized.
open wide, and a smile goes on everything. It's magic. It's
Yeah.
pure magic,
Yeah.
and that has aged perfectly well. The effects are wonky, but that magic is still there. It's lightning in a bottle. That
So
magic.
what is missing?
Right, but
what is
yeah,
missing
so-
from the subsequent?
Because
movies
CGI and all
that-
that and all the special effects now, it's like, why aren't they as engaged with
Heart.
'cause there's-
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because you know what? Can I just say this? I said to you guys that I went to go see the latest Planet of the Apes last night with a friend of mine. And before the movie, well, don't go see the movie, first of all.
Oh wow.
But-
Oh, wow. Oh,
Spoiler
oh,
alert. Don't
wow.
go see it.
Well,
Yeah, no spoilers.
it was no spoilers.
Yeah.
It was
Great
okay.
Caesar's ape.
No, it was okay. But before the movie, they were showing the original movies. And my friend, and I'm going to talk about you, I'm not going to say your name, but he has the attention span of a flea. He could not stop
baseball.
watching the original. And I said, "Do you see how engaged you are?" And he's like, "Oh my God, yeah." I said, "You're not like that with these new Planet of the Apes movies, correct?" He's like, "No."
Mm.
It's something about the originals, even though, like you said, the special effects they're so cheesy.
Is it over
But-
stimulation? Is it overstimulation? Like
I think. I mean,
there's not less story and overstimulation with all the CGI stuff.
I think that's part of it. I don't think. I mean, CG is CG. I think if it can be overdone. Sometimes you could use some in certain scenes. I think heart is definitely a
Mhm.
key. I think when you make a movie, and this is a good question because I don't know if it's a good question, but I'm not sure. Was Donner a fan of Superman of the IP, or was he just looking at it as like a cash?
Finish your point. We'll circle to that.
Okay, so I feel like the better stuff is made by people who are invested in and knowledgeable about the outcome
Agreed.
of the movie and the source material. So I know he's getting a lot of flack for what's coming next, but I'm super excited about the James Gunn reboot because if nothing else, James Gunn is a fan. He knows the source material in and out. You may question some of the choices,
Mhm.
I think, but I feel like if there's anyone who's going to get the heart of Superman right, I feel like it's going to be him because he understands that. I think he did that with relatively unknown D-list characters in Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians of the Galaxy is now a billion-dollar enterprise on their own. They're going to make a Star-Lord movie
Ugh.
by himself. If you would have asked me 20 years ago if they would ever make a Star-Lord movie, I would have been like, why?
I wish they wouldn't.
I mean,
I mean, listen,
I can see why.
Listen,
I can see why.
I
I
think-
can see
I
why
think
people like
The
that.
audience. We're
I-
filming in front of a live audience.
Yeah,
folks.
yeah.
The
So
audience concurs,
I can
yeah.
see
Hi,
why.
Jordan.
But and I feel like, I mean, he gives heart to inanimate wooden animated object, creature. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And an animated raccoon,
Right.
and a I don't know, an intense alien assassin. So he seems to be able to find the heart and the story in these characters, and I feel like he tells very good fish out of water stories. And I
Hmm.
think that if he leans into Superman being, an American hero, if that's where they're going with it, because I know they changed it in that Brandon Routh one where they said truth, justice, and they cut out the American way. And that seemed
Well, in the
like
comics, they made it a better tomorrow,
a better,
which
and
I
a
don't
better tomorrow,
hate.
which I don't hate that. I don't hate that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
If they are going to lean into him like more of an alien trying to find his way, as not just a human but an American human.
Mm-hmm.
I said to Roy when I saw the initial picture of the new uniform, because it looks like uniform, the new costume.
It's a uniform. It's his
the-
uniform.
the
That
new uniform.
sustained. Yeah.
Okay, okay, thank you. That the fact that it was wrinkled was, I thought for me, like more of like an analogy that he doesn't fit it yet,
He's not.
and that he's in the process of fitting into this
Well,
great
it looks
mantle.
really thick. It doesn't
It looks
look
really
skin
thick,
tight,
right?
which
Yeah, it looks like it's definitely a uniform.
So I will
of some
say
kind.
this. So I am actually working on the marketing campaign for that movie.
Really? That's great.
Yay.
So cool.
I have to bite my tongue because the NDA I signed, if I start talking, SWAT teams will break into
Sure.
the windows and
I
shoot
mean,
all
I
of
don't
think
want
they're like
That looks-
floating
that
around
would
right
make
now.
great
you know?
video.
Well, yeah,
They got drones
we're
watching. you.
superheroes here. We can
Right.
fight them
But I
all.
will say
Mhm.
what I'm comfortable saying is that
Yes.
this movie is not going to be dark and it's not going to be self-serious. The fun is definitely an emphasis, and I think that's right. Beyond that, how much soul it's going to have, that I don't know, but that's what I feel comfortable saying.
Okay.
It's good. They're going for a good time. They don't want to feel, you're not going to be punished like some other movies, which we're not going to be naming
Oh,
of
please
recent
name
years.
them.
But I will say about what my esteemed colleague,
That was very good. That was
Right.
what my esteemed colleague Brendon here said is that, I actually didn't hate Man of Steel. A lot of people who love Superman like I do hated it. I think it was a perfectly good and even, markedly good superhero movie.
Mhm.
It just wasn't a Superman movie.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, I know you
1000%.
can't talk about a lot, or you can't talk about anything, but general question I would ask is, what do you think in this Gunn,
Universe.
James Gunn.
James Gunn, thank
Mhm.
you, sorry, James. What do you, because he's going to be listening,
For sure.
Of course he's going to be
For sure.
listening.
right? What do you think, or what do you feel he may bring as far as, is it something we're not going to know about?
The character?
I'm not saying this right, but is there something that we've missed in former Superman movies that you think Gunn will bring as far as Superman, a personality or something we never knew about him?
Yes.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
Are there going to be changes to the mythology? Yes.
Oh,
Are there going to be things from the comics we haven't seen before? Maybe. I really can't be less vague. I know it's annoying, but I
no,
can't.
it's not.
No, it's
No,
cool.
no,
it's
no.
not.
I actually
I
don't.
want to be
I
surprised.
actually
Listen,
don't-
No, I wanna be surprised.
Perfectly
Yeah,
normal.
I do not
with,
want to piggyback.
Yeah.
No, I want to be surprised.
This
So
is-
let's say this. I know you can't go into that.
But
too
here's the
much.
thing.
Yeah.
You asked about Richard Donner,
Yeah.
born Schwarzbalt in the Bronx also. They're all kids from the neighborhood, right?
That's crazy.
He
I
was a
didn't know that.
huge comic book fan growing up, particularly of Superman. And when he read the original script was written by Mario Puzo, the guy who wrote The
The
Godfather.
Godfather.
Oh,
That's
wow.
the
Oh, I was
original
gonna say,
Superman
no,
script.
wow.
Yeah.
By the way, adjusted for inflation, Puzo still to this day is the highest paid screenwriter ever in history. Adjusted for
How
inflation.
much they get paid for that?
Really?
I did the math in the book. I don't remember. I think adjusted with the percentile is like $14 million for a script
Write
or
the script.
some insane something. But anyway, I digress.
That's amazing.
And then they took David and Leslie Newman, who wrote the book for the Superman Broadway. There was a Superman Broadway musical
Wow.
in the 70s, produced by the producer of Fiddler on the Roof. Very weird
Wow.
stuff.
Ah,
And they really
And it went to
humorized it.
Broadway?
What?
It
Yeah,
went to
yeah,
Broadway?
yeah.
Wow.
And the script was very hokey. There's a scene where Superman is looking for Lex Luthor, and he flies and he sees a bald guy, and he taps him on the shoulder and turns around and it's Telly Savalas. Remember Kojak? And he pulls out the lollipop and says, "Who loves you, baby?" Like, really bad stuff. Lex Luthor had pet albino alligators. It was
Yeah.
like
Oh my
really,
goodness.
he had a secret volcano lair. Really, really fun, weird stuff. So when the producers decided to hire Richard Donner based on his work on The Omen,
Mhm.
he
Ooh.
basically realized that it's his job to save Superman. It's a similar story to Michael Uslan, who produced the first Batman movie after the. So he said, "I have to take this job because this needs to be done right. They cannot ruin Superman.
As a
It
fan.
cannot be campy."
Yeah.
So, and I think that again, I don't want to diss Zack Snyder because people do feel passionate about his movies. It's
Very
all great. If
passionate,
that's
yeah.
your cup of tea, good.
Absolutely.
You know, having different tastes is not a moral failing. Great, I support you. But I don't think he was a huge comic fan. I don't think he really understood the source material. He
Okay.
misquoted it enough times that I can objectively point to
Mhm.
that he really did not get what he was
Mhm.
reading. And I think James Gunn gets it. I think he
Okay.
comes from that background. I think he's a comic book guy. I think he's going to bring that to the table.
And do you think he'll bring a balance? Right, you talked a
To the
lot about
Force?
the to the Force, yes, and the right. You
No,
bring
that was Anakin.
Are you an angel? I hate it. I hate it every second of it. Go ahead.
There
Sorry.
there was an article
If
written
you were
about
a
that
dude
recently.
and everybody was
Actually,
calling you Annie all the time, you'd chop heads up.
You're right. You're true.
Yeah.
That's true.
will there be a balance? Right, you just talked about the previous Zach. Do you think he'll bring enough balance where he knows the comics, but he can make it accessible to new fans or people who aren't comic book fans?
Yes,
so
I
I'm
think
so
so.
I'm just gonna piggyback on that because we have 10 minutes left.
Okay.
But I just want to add to that too. In that light, maybe you could hit two in one. I'm kind of looking forward to the new Fantastic Four movie, right? And I feel like the issue that they've had with the previous ones is similar to what they've kind of done with the other Superman movies, right? They've taken the fun out of Fantastic Four. I think the first couple may have tried, but I don't think they understand the
The first one was fun and kid friendly, which is rare.
Right. So it had some interesting elements, but overall, I think it was a failure. I think
Yeah.
the second one was the third one was definitely a failure.
No, it's punishment. That's a good example of a
Oh,
punishment
my
movie.
God,
You feel
awful.
punished while watching it.
Awful. To his point, will James be able to bring that to this new Superman film? And do you think that's the way forward for this new Marvel reboot? Because for all practical purposes, this Fantastic Four movie needs to be the biggest thing Marvel's put out in a long time, because this last phase hasn't been great,
Oh my
and I
gosh,
think
this
people
last
agree
phase
it hasn't
has
been
been
great, and
Booty.
and I know they're cutting back on content and stuff like that. So, do you feel like there's any kind of synergy in terms of the approach to what Marvel has to do going forward and what they will do going forward, and what?
So
James Gunn's done?
I'm cautious, not cautious. I'm fairly optimistic about Gunn. I think he's going to bring it, and I think it's going to be accessible. Rumor is that the Fantastic Four is not going to be part of the same MCU universe. That they're going to do their own thing, but they can really again have their cake and eat it too, because the multiverse and they've played with it
Yeah.
enough.
Mhm.
And yes, I think they need. One of the things that made the MCU so successful was the innovation. We haven't seen things like that before. We didn't see movies of that genre and that quality. If Robert Downey Jr. did that acting in a drama, he would win Oscars, several. But because in
Definitely.
the genre movie, he wasn't even
Exactly.
considered.
Definitely.
But it was excellent. And that's the personality. Chris Evans, Robert Downey Jr. They
Good
need that.
casting, yes.
Listen, with all due respect to Brie Larson, she's no Robert Downey Jr. You
No.
need a few actors. You need to find those. You need to find diamonds in the rough like Chris Hemsworth. You need to get those. You need to put them together, and you need to find ways to innovate.
Yeah.
And not just tread and build upon, because that can only go so far.
So you think a part of the problem with the last DC films was really around casting, like Shazam?
They lost their way.
Yeah,
Nobody was behind the wheel. Shazam: Fury of the Gods annoyed me.
Oh my
They
god!
marketed
it
it as
horrible.
kid friendly. I took my kids. It has 7 shits, and it has a and then it's cutting off. And it also has very graphic violence. There's a moment where a young woman gets shish kebab by a giant scorpion through her chest and thrown over. And my kids were just watching this, and I was there with my 5-year-old. Come on.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
marketed it as a family-friendly movie. It is not a
Yeah.
family-friendly movie.
Yeah.
That's not in fact just a bad movie. I think they
there's
lost their way in
Nobody
all kinds
behind
of
the wheel
ways.
for sure.
I agree.
with that. The Rock was, I read was trying to take over the whole studio.
Well, Black Adam was a mess.
Black
Please,
They
no,
were,
please.
yeah. And
is
his
there gonna be
career is
another
falling
Black
off as a
Adam
result of that Black
movie?
Adam
I don't
movie.
think
He's
he'll-
having a hard
I
time.
don't think there'll ever be another Rock Black Adam. I think that's
I
it.
hope
I still
not.
like him, but
I like him too.
I still like him
I
too.
don't.
I just would like him to
I
not
don't
be
and
Black
and I
Adam.
like the
Fair.
I don't
idea of
understand
him
the
being
appeal.
Black Adam initially. I was like, oh, this is a good fit, but that movie was bad.
it was a vanity project.
But what about
instead of being-
Flash?
for sure.
I did not. I didn't hate the Flash, but
Why did I like that movie?
it's okay.
I mean, there's good fun elements.
Michael Keaton.
Yeah, Michael Keaton was fine though. I didn't like what they did with his character, but I did
No.
like. I
Yeah,
did like
I didn't-
Michael
it-
Keaton.
But here's the thing.
I wanted to like it because of Michael Keaton, but that's not why. Because I didn't like him in that movie.
Yeah.
But I liked the movie, and
I was
and,
ambivalent
and
to
I
that
was like
movie.
the other. I was like
Yeah.
the only one I know that liked that movie, and
I like the beginning and then kind of tapered off.
yeah, maybe that's what it was.
Once he saved that baby by putting it in a microwave, it's like, oh, you're
Yeah.
saving, you're going there. This is going to be cuckoo stuff, and then they just lost that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
they lost the thread, and then it became
Yeah.
very serious and very kind of.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
it's two all over the place.
But Michael Keaton is an example. He's middle aged. He's not in particularly any great shape by superhero standards.
Right.
But he's still Batman. He is still Batman. We
Facts.
need those
He is
stars.
still-
We need that star power in
We
those
would
movies.
Still go. We would
That's
definitely.
to
Yes.
be a known star, but that gravity.
Yeah.
So that being said, how do you feel about that? The new Joker 2. It's going to have Joaquin Phoenix. It's going to have Lady Gaga.
And it's a
gonna be
musical.
a musical, which
It's a
doesn't
musical.
turn me
Yeah, dude.
off. I mean, I'm not. It doesn't turn me away from it. I'm interested to see. It's Todd Phillips.
Todd Phillips and
interested-
Scott Silver is the writer.
Okay.
Oscar winning. He did 8 Mile. He did The Fighter.
Yeah.
Accomplished.
Yeah, I think for DC, and I think I told you this a while ago. I think DC's way, what they should have done way back, and they failed to do, and maybe they'll do this time. And maybe not Superman wouldn't be the example of that, but I think The Dark Knight. What made The Dark Knight so successful was it was kind of grounded a little bit in hyper reality, but they treated it seriously, and they seemed to have they took time with the characters and the stories and the dialogue and making a film, which is exactly what they think they did with the original with the second Joker with the first Joker with Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I feel like if they continue to go that direction and make films with good stories, I think they'll be fine.
Right.
And I feel like James Gunn is in that headspace.
So the Joker isn't part of the DCU. It's
Right.
its own thing under Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
But
Elseworlds.
listen, it may be terrible. It may be amazing.
I
It
didn't
may
know
be
it was gonna
anywhere in
be a
between.
musical.
But
That
here's
just
the
made me
thing.
I
sad.
didn't know that either.
They're at least brave. They're doing something.
It is brave.
There's room for everything.
I don't want them to be brave. I want them to be brave.
And it's going to be dark. It's not going to be like a fun musical. It's not
Okay,
Disney
but
musical.
that's going to be interesting.
And Lady Gaga is,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're running out of time. We didn't get enough
We
time.
we
This was-
scratched the surface.
Just scratch the surface.
Yeah.
Roy, you got to come back and do this again. If you had a good time, I would love to have you.
Have your people contact my people.
I'll do
Oh,
that.
I don't know the details.
He's-
Yeah.
That's you got to get him now.
Roy, I have one
Um,
question. Can I ask
yeah,
one?
of
Of course,
course.
go for it. We have 3 minutes. Go.
I heard, confirm or deny, or maybe you can't say anything. Crypto, is he going to make an appearance in this Superman movie?
I plead the fifth.
So we're gonna see crypto.
I didn't say that.
He did not say that. I do not want the SWAT team. to
DC,
come.
please.
Let-
No snipers, please.
No
I didn't say
snipers.
anything. Didn't come from me.
Let people know where they can find you and find your work and
Dark alleys mostly. No. Is Superman Circumcised? The book is available everywhere books are sold. You can order it. It's on Amazon. And you can find me on all social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, as Real Roy Schwartz. Not to be confused with the fake ones. There are a few of them.
That's right.
Real Roy Schwartz. I write about pop culture for CNN, IGN, and others. So there's always something going on that's interesting.
Very cool.
Excellent.
Let people know where they can find you.
Me?
Yeah.
Who am
They
I?
can holler at you.
You can find, my name is Dana Deet on Instagram, so you can find me there, but you're not going to see much. And I'm on Facebook.
It's quality over quantity.
Exactly.
There you go.
Exactly. Professor.
And I'm Sheldon Applwhite. I can be found on all platforms. I'm only one of 2 Sheldon Applewhites in the world, I think. So find me on social media.
And you, Brendon?
Brendon Hamilton. You can find me on social media as Brendon Hamilton or Bmusicmaker. The letter B and Musicmaker, one word. But yeah, just Brendon Hamilton with an O, not an A, or some other letter. Hamilton.
And where will the podcast be available going forward?
We're going to be able to find it on YouTube. We're going to post snippets on it on obviously on the socials, Instagram and Facebook and such. We're going to post little 30-second clips so you guys can get tuned in and catch up. And
We welcome your comments.
we
right?
Yeah,
welcome
audio,
Apple
all
Play.
comments.
Audio stuff, Apple Play.
Audio, say Apple Pay, Spotify. It's going to be on all of those platforms, so you will be
Cool.
able to listen to the soothing sounds of Roy's voice
Roy's voice.
wherever you want at your leisure.
And we should probably give a shout out to our producer, right?
Yes.
Director.
Yes.
Go
The
ahead.
director
Go
of the
ahead.
first episode.
Jordan.
Yeah.
Jordan.
Thank you
Yes,
very much.
thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Jordan.
WTF Studios here in Canal Street and downtown.
WTF stands for what the falafel.
What the
PG-13. PG-13. Yeah.
What the falafel? Real quick, we have 2 minutes. Is there a movie you're looking forward to that's not Superman?
I'm kind of looking forward to If, which is not superhero related. I'm going to see it, the press premiere with Brendon next Tuesday. I'm a big believer in the power of imagination. And that movie seems like a very magical kid
It does
movie
seem
about the
very
power of
magical.
imagination. And I'm a sucker for those if they're done well.
Real
Great.
quick, for any aspiring writers, any one tip you would give them right now?
Yeah, study law or something. Don't become a writer. That's one. You know what? You'll get a ton of advice about the creative process. I say be a professional. Business skills, people skills, put your butt down and write and write and write and write and be dependable because somebody's giving you money for this. So that's my technical advice.
Great advice.
Oh, I mean,
Excellent.
I can't do better than that. That's the Quest Culture Podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank our special guest, my friend, Mr. Roy Schwartz, for being here with us. And we can't wait to do this again. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Really enjoyed